You forgot their divorce, but remembered the color of their kitchen wall. Now they are smiling at you like this is a continuation, not a restart. And somewhere in the next 5 seconds, you must act like nothing is missing. You nod too confidently while your brain searches every possible drawer at once. Was it their brother who moved away or the dog who recently died? Did they quit that job last year, or was that someone else entirely? The panic is never loud, but it arrives fast and starts ruining your timing. So you start performing interest while hiding the blank space behind your eyes, hoping they say enough to rescue you before your silence becomes suspicious. And the worst part is this makes you look colder than you are. People see this habit and assume something harsh, that you were never as invested as you seemed. They think forgetting details means the person in front of you simply did not matter enough. That if they were important, your mind would have kept the facts in a safer place somewhere. So the mistake starts looking moral instead of mental, and that is where the shame begins. You do not just feel forgetful in that moment. You feel quietly guilty in a deeper way. Because forgetting a detail about someone can look like forgetting the person themselves. And that is what makes these moments sting harder than ordinary lapses usually do. They feel less like memory failure and more like evidence of some hidden flaw in you. But that interpretation is usually too simple for what your brain is actually doing. Memory is not a loyal archivist carefully preserving every fact with equal respect and care. It is selective, moody, and constantly deciding what felt important in the moment it arrived. Which means the detail that mattered socially may not be the detail your mind chose to keep. The problem is not always that you did not listen when they spoke about their life. Sometimes the problem is that your attention stored the feeling and dropped the file name. And once you understand that the whole behavior starts looking very different from coldness. The brain does not store people as clean profiles with labeled sections and perfect order. It stores fragments, impressions, tones, reactions, and whatever felt alive in the moment. So while someone is telling you where they grew up, your mind may catch something else. The pause before they answered, or the sadness hidden behind an ordinary-sounding sentence. You may remember how guarded they seemed before they finally started opening up a little. Or the exact change in their face when they mentioned someone they no longer speak to. These things enter deeply because they carry emotional weight and texture your mind can hold. But the factual detail sitting beside them may pass through without rooting itself at all. Not because it was worthless, but because memory does not rank things by social expectation. It ranks them by meaning, tension, novelty, emotion, and whatever felt psychologically charged. That is why some people remember the atmosphere of a conversation more than the facts. They leave with the essence of the person, but not the neat biography others expect, which can make them seem absent when they were actually noticing something harder to name. They were not ignoring the person, they were just encoding them in a different language. And that difference is where a lot of this forgetting quietly begins in the first place. And there is another reason these details disappear that has less to do with care than pressure. A lot of people are not fully receiving a conversation because they are busy managing it. They are tracking tone, timing, eye contact, reactions, and whether they sound normal enough. While the other person is speaking, their mind is already editing the next response. They are choosing words too early and monitoring themselves too closely to stay present. So the detail gets heard, but it never settles because attention was split on arrival. This is what pressure does. It turns listening into performance and presence into self-control. The conversation keeps moving. The part of the mind is standing outside, judging every step. Was that too awkward, too flat, too eager, too quiet, too late to feel natural there? And in that constant self-supervision, memory starts dropping whatever feels least urgent. Not because the person mattered less, but because the interaction itself took too much bandwidth. Some minds are so busy trying to land the moment well that they barely get to keep it. They remember the tension of being there more than the information that passed through it. So what looks like indifference is often attention hijacked by pressure from the inside. And once that pattern repeats enough, forgetting starts to feel like part of your nature. But some people are not built to remember others as data. They remember them as atmosphere. They hold on to the feeling of a person long after the factual outline has disappeared. They remember who felt heavy, who felt warm, who made the room suddenly feel smaller. They remember the hesitation before a sentence and the look that followed an awkward laugh. They remember the energy someone carried more than the timeline they tried to explain. This kind of mind stores human beings as impressions before it stores them as records. It notices emotional texture before it notices categories, dates, labels, and clean descriptions. So later it may fail to recall where someone works, but recall exactly how they felt. It may forget the detail, but keep the emotional imprint with surprising precision intact. That does not mean the person was not registered. It means they were registered differently. The brain chose essence over inventory and mood over structure without asking permission, which is frustrating in social life because people often value recall as proof of care. But the mind is not always trying to be socially impressive. It is trying to make sense. And some minds make sense of people through undercurrents, not through organized information. That is why forgetting details can coexist with noticing things most people completely miss. And to be fair, forgetting details about someone can hurt more than people like to admit. It can feel like proof that what mattered to you barely registered on the other side. Like your story landed softly and then disappeared without leaving any shape behind at all. That feeling is real, and the sting of it is not something the psychology should dismiss. But forgotten facts are not always evidence that the person in front of you did not care. Sometimes they remember your energy more clearly than the information you attached to it. They remember the way your face changed when the topic became quietly personal. They remember your hesitation, your humor, your distance, your warmth, your strange kind of sadness. They may forget where you worked, but still remember exactly how you made the room feel. Which means their memory failed in form, but not necessarily in human recognition or depth. This is what makes the whole thing more complicated than simple selfishness or indifference. Some people lose the detail, but keep the impression, and that impression still comes from you. So the absence of a fact does not always mean the absence of emotional registration. It may only mean the mind held on to the texture and let go of the label. And once you see that clearly, the behavior starts looking flawed, but also deeply human. So no, this does not always mean you move through people without truly noticing them. It may mean your mind stores feeling first and leaves structure to fend for itself. Still, you can help it by repeating details aloud and linking them to something vivid. A fact survives longer when it attaches to an image, a pattern, or an emotional thread. That is how memory works best, not through pressure, but through meaning and association. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become more intentional with what you keep. Because forgetting a detail is not the same as failing to care about a person. Some minds remember people as experiences before they remember them as information. And that does not make you cold. It just means your memory speaks a different language. If this kind of psychology speaks to you, subscribe for more videos like this.